Welcome to Mindfall, where the questions twist and turn. Dive deep with us, we'll watch ideas burn. Down the rabbit hole we go, chasing thoughts you've yet to know. Mindfall's here, let's start the show.
Hi, and welcome to Mindfall with Mike and Mike. In this podcast, we explore ideas that take us down the proverbial rabbit hole and ask the hard questions and answer them with the help of our AI chatbot. And I'm Mike.
So, Mike, what topic are we going to discuss today?
That's a good one. And I think it's really topical given everything that we experience and everything we're fed. With the rise in social media, has the definition of the truth changed? Are you ready to dive in on this one?
Hit play. Let's see where chat
All
decides
right.
to take us today.
All right, we're going to switch over to chat, and we're going to see what it's got to say about it. So I typed it in, and I hit go, and I haven't not read it yet. So, yeah, the workable operational definition of truth used in everyday life has changed dramatically with the rise of social media. Even if the philosophical definition hasn't, social media didn't rewrite the nature of truth itself, but it rewired it how humans perceive, validate, spread, and enforce it. Oh boy. We opened up a can of worms today, didn't we?
It appears so.
Yeah. So the definition of truth changed in the social media age. Objective truth is what's real regardless of opinion. Subjective truth being what feels real based on perspective. And consensus truth is what a group agrees is real. And social media alters the second and third categories and overwhelms our access to the first. Truth didn't change, but the mechanisms of truth changed. Do you want to unpack that a little bit?
I go back to, back in the day I used to watch a little bit of Seinfeld. And this just reminds me of George Costanza. And I'll never forget this, 'cause I thought it was hilarious. He was talking to Jerry, he said, it's not a lie if you believe it. So, when I think about truth, I'm like, it's not a lie if you believe it. If you keep telling yourself that something is a truth, maybe it is. But, what did we talk about earlier about trust and verification? So, am I going to verify these truths that I believe? What's your thoughts?
What happened to that old phrase? Trust but verify. I'm not sure even what verify by what truth. And if you want to go with histories written by the victors, then maybe truth is written by social media today.
Well, it's funny that you say this, because it's like, about trust and verify, because we went through a whole period of there when, we were going through elections and what have you, and then there was fact checkers, and people were talking, and then they're doing fact checks, and then, I just thought that was interesting that, okay, well, this person, they might have kind of told the truth, but they didn't have all the facts and figures right, and then, that was a lie. Well, okay, that was the truth. And I get it, where nobody's perfect with their memories, and so is almost the truth the truth?
And
it's almost the truth.
And are you stretching it to change the facts, or are you accidentally changing it? So do you want to embellish in order to make the subject matter sound better for yourself or for the subject that you're talking about? Or are you accidentally just tripping across something that you thought you heard or you thought you knew but isn't true? I mean, it's almost like that whole Mandela effect thing that people talk about. And, Fruit of the Loom, was there ever a cornucopia? Or,
Yes.
Bernstein Bears versus Berenstein Bears,
Well, I mean, I feel like we only remember certain things. And sometimes even when you go back into life, your core memories of growing up as a child, and, I remember Christmas of '85, I got a big wheel or whatever. Okay, you got the big wheel, but what other gifts did you get? And I don't really remember. And then now it starts to become a little bit gray out there. So we tie this back into social media where we started with this, it's funny to me when I look at, these influencers or whatever you want to call them, when they have all this stuff set up and I'm in Ibiza and I do all this and I do this, and they come to find out they just have a green screen behind them and they're telling a story and it's not the truth, but they're trying to convince you that it's the truth. And people now, we don't even know what we're looking at sometimes with AI and everything else. Is that the truth? I have no idea.
Yeah, let's kick back over to our friend in the chat bot. I want to talk about kind of where this goes. I scrolled ahead and looked, and it goes pretty deep. I mean, we're going down the well here. I think this really hits everything right on the head. That the whole point of everything that is being fed to us, especially through social media, is about gaining your attention. And if it's being fed to you in order to hit those neuroreceptors and those dopamine receptors such that you pay attention, you stay on that for half a second longer before you click to the next reel or YouTube short or whatever you're watching, you're going to tend to believe what you're fed. So instead of believing the evidentiary truth, you're believing what you're being engaged with. It's not true because it's correct, but because it feels true.
They're keeping your attention. We are in a society of scrolling, clicking. I feel like we are no longer present in our own lives because we are now watching somebody else's life and what they're living and say, "Oh, that look cool." I mean, they're fishing or they're doing all the things that I like to do because my algorithm is feeding me that. I feel like it's almost to a point where I think we had a conversation about this a while ago. Where why do we even have television, cable, or any of that anymore? Because now your algorithm is just showing you the things that you want to see. You're not having to go through now, click the clicker and say, "Oh, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that." What's on? There's nothing on. There's nothing on TV. There's nothing ever on TV.
And is it really showing you what you want to see, or is it showing you what you tend to watch more of? So, and there's a difference, because what I want to see is, I want to watch car stuff and I want to watch some hunting movies and, some old westerns or something like that. But what I tend to watch a little bit more are the more risky discussions, the more thought-provoking discussions. Even if that reel is half an hour or half a minute, 45 seconds, maybe a minute at the most, you've caught my attention. And so the longer you watch it, the more likely it is that the algorithm is going to feed you the correlating piece of information that tells the same story, and you really start to believe that information that's really being just forced down your throat, and your truth becomes what you see.
I have to keep you clicking. I have to keep you engaged. So that way, again, going back to this truth, I have to feed you this algorithm. If it's a political thing and, you got left, right, center. Oh, well, you like to watch right stuff. So I'm going to keep pushing you right propaganda or whatever you want to call it all the time. Oh, I'm on the left. Oh, I'm going to push you all the left stuff and while the right's bad. And then people in the middle were like, you kind of get a little bit of both, but you're like, I don't even know what the truth is because I saw two topics on the same exact thing, and I have two different viewpoints,
And things are progressing at such a rate that you don't have the opportunity to verify or truth check or fact check any of these details before the next piece of information is just being thrown at you. And there's so little validity or desire to provide that fact checking or, how do you do a citation on a reel or social media post or anything? You can't cite something. Who's going to go over and click onto the notes that go along with that TikTok post to maybe click on the link that they may be included to document their source?
When I look at the progression of the truth of news and everything else, I go back to a time when when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, where you had the Walter Cronkite, you had the Dan Rathers, the Peter Jennings, Ted Koppel, Barbara Walters, and they did some investigative reporting, and you trusted these people. You trusted them. When they got up on there and Walter Cronkite said, "Then this is the news," or whatever, and blah blah blah, that was the truth. At least how we were perceived at the time, because they in order to keep their job at that time, they had to have a certain level of integrity. And you fast forward to the 90s, boom, we're into sensationalism. Like, oh, I gotta create more drama. And then there still was some truth in some of this stuff. Like the Maury Povich is, but not to say he was a news guy, but but we became more entertainment-based news. And then now we go to social media where I'm like, is all news just entertainment? Because it's not telling the truth is being bent everywhere.
Yeah, the 90s, 80s and 90s with the kickoff of CNN and cable news really started that whole trend of you've got to have that banner ad that's feeding information all the time, and every 5 seconds pop up with the graphics of breaking news. And, how do you retain that individual to stay on your network rather than stay connected to the news? So, the news segments tend to get shorter and shorter. And I know we're kind of picking on the news here, but the news segments get shorter and shorter, and then the commercials get longer and longer. That's the stuff they're selling to you, but the headline gets more and more grandiose. Breaking news. Is it really breaking? It's just okay. It's raining in Tampa. Okay, so
Yeah, but see, I trust the weatherman. I still trust the weatherman to a degree.
And just to carry over how far you can take that example, I like pop culture and I like movies. And sci-fi is one of my favorite genres. And so the movie Ready Player One, based on a really good book, but the movie did a pretty good adaptation. And at one point they say, hey, well, you're in the environment. We can sell 98% of your visual space as ad space before you go into a seizure. Were they making a point? Yes. But how accurate is that? Because you've got the news people, you've got 2 or 3 banners. You've got the stock ticker going down the side. You've got the weather up in the corner. Oh, look, a pretty little sunshine. And you're like, I'm just being bombarded with information. And at no point do you have the bandwidth to pull any of that apart and say, you know what? I don't think Bigfoot was actually sighted in Tennessee. I can't
look at that corner and say 55 and sunny today. Everything else, and it's just because it's a picture and a number. Yeah. Everything else is like
So let's kick back over to AI, over to chat, and because I think it really hits the what we were talking about with this virality outpaces verification. A false but sensational post can reach millions of people before a correction exists, and you've got that confirmation bias. You want to believe what you're told. You don't want to have to go back and fact check it. They've already hit you, and they're going to tell you in the most thought-provoking way that really gets your heart pumping and hits your mind, hits your heart, and by the time you've really digested it, they've moved on to the next thing, or you have another reel coming in, and you really don't have time to digest and say, was that right? You just accept it as fact, Yeah.
I mean, if you this is not the first time, even with social media. You remember, I can't remember his name, the guy who played Ironsides, and he did that War of the Worlds on the radio, and it caused a panic across the United States because he was just telling the story, and then, again, it went viral at that time. It caused panic, and it's just a radio show. We just were telling a story. It's not real.
Yeah.
But already down, like, I gotta get to my bunker and all this other type of stuff. I mean, and that's unfortunately, I feel like that's the world we live in. I don't know. We grew up in pre-phone era, pre-social media era. But I'm like looking at my children, I'm like, this is all you know.
Yeah, and if you look at use that example of the War of the Worlds, it still goes back to your Dan Rathers, your Walter Cronkites. They had the integrity to hold all of that together. Even when you talk about yellow journalism of the 1800s, the 19th century, that was sensationalized journalism, but you had it in what should be a reputable source. It came in your newspaper, and you could usually tell your regular newspaper from your tabloid rags. And
what's this newspaper thing you speak of?
Well, I'm a bit of a boomer, but you had a reliable source that you could go back to. And how many times have you wanted to share a reel with me or something on social media, but you clicked past it and now you can't get back to it and you can't find it?
Oh my God. All the time.
you felt it was so important to share it with me because you wanted to convey what that message said, whether it was trying to share what you felt to be truth or accurate, or be humorous. The whole point is, once it's gone, it's gone. And the old truth, the old way that we approached things prior to social media, you had concrete sources. I mean, book report days. Okay, we're getting a little Luddite, but went to the library, opened the card catalog, looked up your sources. You might have photocopied your sources to keep them for later in your manila folder when you're in high school, but yeah. Well, you still had sources. Now I could go on social media and put together 5 TikToks that talk about how the sky is falling and backdrop it with stuff from the Leonid meteor shower last week, and people are going to believe the sky is falling.
Yeah.
So,
and to go further down that journey with we're talking about, like, you missed the opportunity to send you a reel or whatever. I also have found that if it was a more controversial reel, some sort of hot take on something that happened in current events, I sent it to somebody, right? And when they receive it, it's like, I didn't get it. What were you sending me? Because it's a cooking reel, or sometimes they scrub it. Whoever owns all the media,
it's
companies,
gone before somebody gets it.
It's gone. Like, wait a second.
Yep.
I know I sent this, and I go back on my phone, and it is not the same reel that I sent to you.
But that hits to this next point where identity becomes a foundation of truth. You identified with that, and so you felt a connection to that. It hit you and your tribe. It talked to your deep foundational base, what you identify with, what is your key self-expression, what emotionally resonates with you, and what are your political affiliations. So it hits you, and you want to have faith in those people. Is it our leaders that are sharing information? Is it the news? Is it somebody who looks good and wearing a tie with an American flag background that they cropped on in front of a green screen? The more reputable you look, the more you believe it.
I think, though, too, once the people that we once thought were the trustworthy sources, and we find after fact-checking or whatever, they are not necessarily telling us the truth, and they lose credibility, then, I know for me, sometimes I have found some people on social media that I'm like, yeah, they seem like they're pretty honest, but they're shooting this thing out of their house, and they're just regular Joes. And I'm like, well, what investigative reporting did you do, and where did you get this information from, and how do I know the information that you got was verified? I don't. I'm like, oh, look at this old lady that I think that this grandma-looking woman, she's definitely a trustworthy source. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I really don't.
At least on the Daily Show, you can tell that they're standing in front of a green screen when they're doing their satire. It's all intended to be funny. But let's explore a deep fake or an AI-generated video that, if it's a certain length, you really can't tell truth from reality sometimes. And all it takes is a script prompt, and the AI generates whatever it wants to generate, and it's not necessarily telling you the quote-unquote truth. It's going off of whatever large language model is out there. And if you want to rely on AI, you've got to look at what is trending. AI is going to look at what is the most popular item of the recent past in order to support their large language result in their model. So if what was trending yesterday is all about this sensational item and how the sky is falling, then it's going to validate that the sky is falling and say that further that's the truth in this fake video, And you're going to believe it because you got some individual with a shirt and tie and in front of a background, and they look honest, they look real. But you never see them again, you have no idea who they are.
I will say that I'm disappointed a lot in the direction I feel like this is taking America, because we as a country have never been in such a divisive place, and it's only because the social media and the news and all the stuff that's dumped on us to separate. I need these people over here and these people over here in order so that whoever's the puppet master can do whatever they want, because nobody knows what the truth is. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, which hits to kind of the next point of authority has collapsed. We don't rely on the old sources. We don't trust anybody anymore, because everybody's just out there to sensationalize and get things across. Scientists and doctors, they lost a lot of credibility during COVID because they became politically aligned, and they were pushing a political agenda instead of a science-based agenda, because their funding was directly tied to that political basis. The journalists are tied to their ad revenues, and government. Hunt for Red October, another great movie.
Let's not touch the government. We already know. We already know. Let's not touch the government. We already know.
But the line of I'm a politician, which means I'm a liar and a cheat. If I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops. So anytime I see a politician, I think that, and there's a difference between an elected official and a politician in my eyes. We're not going to chase that rabbit hole today, but how do you trust what you're innately told as a child, raising up through school? You're told to trust these individuals. But when they're force-fed upon you in our day-to-day digestion of media, and they're sensationalized, you've got a medical ad and it looks great. Do I trust doctors as much because the medical ads are all over the place? No, I don't. I question all of it. I'm going out and trying to do my own research to figure out if I'm falling apart because I'm almost 50 years old and maybe my joints aren't working like they used to. Oh, hey doc, I need
ads. Who are you advertising to? Because the person that you're advertising to can't go to the store and get this thing without a prescription from the doctor. So are you trying to advertise to me so I go to my doctor to go, I need this medicine. He's going to look at us, or she's going to look, well, are you crazy? You don't need this.
Yeah. Well,
it's frustrating.
But I need phylloxyflenterol. The advertisement said I need phylloxyflenterol.
It might cause bleeding, rashes, and blindness, but it'll clear up my
all exactly the same. They're all causing the exact same side effects. How am I supposed to believe that any of these medications do anything if they all cause injury or death?
What I laugh about is that you take that medicine, then you're going to have to take another medicine for the side effects that medicine caused. Then you're on this. That's a whole big pharma conversation. We're going to have another day.
Yeah. So what should we believe if truth in the definition therein, if the definition of truth is shifted, what do we believe in, and how do we encourage change such that our kids, generations that follow us, still have something that they can rely upon and don't end up just living off of a 90-second reel that tells them what to believe?
I mean, I'm all about empirical data, but the problem with that is you have to trust the source that you're getting that data from unless you collect it yourself. And then someone can say, oh, you collected it yourself, but how truth is you forgot to do this, and this, so I don't trust your data. So it's a very difficult thing. It's almost like you have to visual see something happen if you didn't see it happen yourself. And which is funny when I say that because I've been to some classes where they do the whole thing with the witness and something happens and they cross the stage and they run and then they'll ask the whole audience, well, what colored jacket did the man that committed that thing? And everybody, half the class has a different answer. So we all saw something different. I don't know. I don't know. It's just you have to have trust. I don't know. I feel like it's lost.
And I feel like truth as we knew it was defined by the source documents that were used to generate it. So, that's kind of a roundabout way of saying if it appeared on the news, on the 6 o'clock news in the late 60s, it was there because it was fact-checked and it was real.
Yes.
If you fast forward 60 years to now, what appears on the 6 o'clock news is only there to tell you to pay attention to the next little soundbite that's coming up in order to inflame you, to get you either to pay attention more because you've got a commercial break coming up and they've got to sell you something, or to try and get you pushed toward one political agenda or the other. And how's that phrase go? If you're not paying for something, you're the product, So are we just being sold a line in order to have us stick around and invest more in their product, use their social media platform longer, stay on their TV channel longer so they can sell us more ad space?
What do the kids say? It's all about the likes. People don't put up information if they're not striving for the likes. I need you to look at what I'm looking at, whatever I'm saying, because I need the likes. And it gets to a point where, even going back to that 6 o'clock news edge, I found it interesting, when I'm looking at current events, I'm seeing what the news is putting out. And one thing I do appreciate is when I'm getting different angles and different views from people that were actually there. And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem right. They said this, but that's not what I'm seeing from my perspective, And then it helps me question what's going on. And at that rate, I'm trying to find my own truth with the data that I'm getting. But the problem is, again, going back to the algorithm, I'm only getting the side of the algorithm that I am subscribed to,
Yeah, and you and I both tend to display some pretty traditional family values. And we've talked about it, and then sit down at the dinner table with the family and the kids, right? And the kids spout off something that they heard online. And I've been very, not quick to correct, but firm in reminding them that they need to double check that information before they start spreading it around, because it's just like a rumor that starts in middle school. It flashes around the school and does more damage than good, even though it was never true.
And
it was spread.
A telephone game on top of that, because by the time it gets to that last person, the story you told is a whole different story. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Absolutely. So it's all right. I've gone on the record with them, and had the wife smack me in the arm and be like, "Come on, cut it out. He was just telling a joke." Well, maybe he was, but was it intended as a joke, or was it the joke of propagation of some fake information that's going to be, the more times it's told, the more true it becomes? And if history is written by the victors, then truth is written by the person that says it the most number of times and gets the most likes.
Because they're force-feeding this truth down my throat like we talked about earlier, and it's just like, well, it must be the truth because I heard it 4,000 times. Quoting our president, well, that's fake news,
Yeah.
And it was funny, I'm not trying to be political, but I know when he first started saying that, I was just like, what's this guy talking about? And then it started to see that there were some things that was eye-opening. And I was like, well, that does make me question some things, And now, I guess that was like, now we're in 2025. I feel like we've lost control of the narrative. Like, what's the truth?
It just doesn't hit as hard. It just doesn't hit as hard anymore. So let's wrap this up. And truth no longer competes with lies. It competes with entertainment. It's what are they selling you? They want to keep you entertained, and it's no longer dependent on evidence. It's dependent on the algorithms. How many feeds can it get you? How many likes can it get? How many views can it get? Because if the truth only has 10 views, nobody's ever going to see it. If it is sensationalized, it's going to get 1 million or two views in the first day, and everybody's going to see it. And the truth no longer pulls everybody together, no longer unifies everybody. It's being worked to divide us even further. So the truth is being manipulated to a point where my truth is meant to hurt your truth. The facts are polarized, even though they might be factually accurate. They're being presented in a manner where they're intended to hurt, not coalesce.
When I look at truth, I always go back to, I remember there's that one picture or meme or whatever you want to call it, where one person is looking at a 6 and there's a person on the opposite side that's looking at a 9.
Yeah.
They're both right because it was a matter of perspective. 6, no, it's 9. And they're arguing back and forth because they didn't take the time to maybe walk on where you are or go to where you are and see your truth from your perspective. Because I'm dug in and I'm stuck where I'm at and I'm not listening to you because you're wrong. But you didn't take the time to say, all right, well, let me investigate and see, well, what are you looking at? Oh, you're looking at a 6. Oh, I can see it from your perspective now because it does look like a 6. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But no, we're entrenched I'm not coming over
Yep.
there because you're wrong. You know?
Yeah.
So that's where, yeah, there it is right there. 6'9", 6'9". So that's where I feel like, I hate to say it, I feel like that's where we are with truth. Because nobody's taking the time to listen to another perspective.
Yeah. And, you got his truth, her truth, and the truth is somewhere in between, right? We've all heard that too. The basis of observation really factors in how you observe and how you take something to be reality. But I think as a society and as a culture, until we're willing to take the time, slow down, take the time, and fact check on data, we're going to have a really hard time having anything that can be even remotely considered the truth.
I almost want, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but it's almost like you have to have a banner underneath some of these social media posts that says, this has been fact checked, this is, there's data that, backs this up, or hey, this is just entertainment and this is somebody's truth, this is somebody's, opinion, because everybody can have an opinion, doesn't mean it has to be true. But to be able to scroll, like, maybe it hits you with banners of different colors to say, okay, this one's green, so that means it's the truth. If it's yellow and red, this is absolute lies and trash. So, and I bet you if you scroll enough, and the reds will start disappearing, because maybe we don't need the reds anymore. Because I feel like when we look at our children, they are more heavily influenced by this than we are, in the sense that this is the only thing they do. They don't look at television. They are on their phones scrolling. And
we categorize those when we were younger. They were categorized by the type of show that it was on television, on traditional television. The news was the news, and opinion shows were opinion shows. So you had the radio call-in shows. Larry King had his televised radio call-in show. They'd interview somebody, but a lot of that they caveated and said, this is an opinion-based show. We're going to try and fact check as much as possible, but this is an opinion-based show. Take your opinion for what it is. And we're no longer willing to differentiate between opinion and fact. They are one and the same. My opinion is my fact, because that's what I'm going to believe. That's what I'm going to go with, and I'm going to go forward and not care about anything else.
I would almost echo that and say, like, I wish when we talk about, and again, I don't want to get too much into politics, but when they're talking about whatever's happening, let's just say, benefits or whatever, if you're going to talk about it, I want the numbers up on the screen. I want the actual numbers from the census or whatever data we're using, because I want everybody talking about the same numbers on both sides of the fence. I don't want it to be like, I made up, it's 1 million people. No, it's 40 million people. And us as Americans, we're like, I don't know.
We have the technology to do that in real time. You can still get the news out in real time, live news, and the data can be fact-checked via AI tools and categorize that last fact might not have been 100% accurate, so I'm going to code it amber on the side of the screen, and or maybe have a color gradation bar. We're getting more into amber, which is more opinion, and green is more fact. Red is we're not necessarily telling the truth. And if you had that red, amber, green light bar on the side of your TV telling you what's what, you're right. I think we would still watch the reds, still watch the yellows, but we would take less credence in that bias against especially the green stuff that had been fact-checked and verified.
That would be hilarious, to be quite honest with you, because as everybody starts off at green, and all next thing you know, yo, red. It'd be like, oh my God, guys.
We reserve rights on the scroll bar on the side of the thing. Patent pending.
It would be hilarious, because it'd be like, this guy is lying. He's lying his ass off. It would be hilarious. And that would be something to watch.
Just start it with the political debates, and then start carrying it over into the news, and then carry it over into social media reels and everything else. Just start it somewhere.
But it gets to a point where there's something there's entertainment. And you're going to have to differentiate, because there is a lot of stretching of the truth in entertainment. So it's like, you got to draw a line somewhere. But if it was just like the news and, the political stuff that we were forced to watch because they take over every network TV. It would be interesting to see how that would play out. Now, if you could, before we wrap it up, go back to the first question, or when we posed the question. I just want us to have some closing thoughts on the initial question that we had.
All right, so scrolling all the way back up, the question as we asked it is, with the rise in social media, has the definition of truth changed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that...
I think that right there, yep, that's very telling. It's yes.
Yes. I think that we are starting to get to a point where we don't know what it is, and we're starting to question ourselves of, like, I don't know, and I don't feel comfortable with saying I don't know. It's something that should be point blank obvious that this is the truth.
Social media didn't rewrite the nature of truth itself, but it rewired how humans perceive, validate, spread, and enforce it. If you're unwilling to be an enforcer before you spread, then you're just as bad as the vehicle that's being used to perpetuate those falsehoods. Do right, encourage those around you to do right, and hold yourself accountable to the truth. That's all we can do.
It's almost like the boy who cried wolf. Told all these stories, and there's a big wolf and going after the sheep. Everybody ran out. There's no wolf. And then when the wolf came, nobody believed him. And that's where I feel that we are at right now in society. Like, a lot of people out there crying wolf, and it gets to the point where we're numb to it because you've lied so much. I don't even know what the truth is.
I mean, wolf hunting season, what am I supposed to do? Mike, this was a great subject. I really appreciate your thoughts and everything on it. I want to encourage our audience, as we're going through this, if you guys have ideas of things you'd like us to explore, send us an email. You can reach us at mindfall.podcast@gmail.com. You can join us on our Patreon. Just search up Mindfall.Podcast on the Patreon. Join us there. We're going to try to have some Patreon-specific episodes. But we're really going to try to keep digging deep and diving into these hard questions that people just don't want to ask. And people are almost afraid to get the answers for, because we feel, as parents and good members of society, these are the reasons that we do the Mindfall. Is why we're here. We want to hit those answers.
Answering questions that nobody asked. But people in their mind, but I'm not going to ask that question. We're going to try to answer.
All right, Mike. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Mike. Great talking to you.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Welcome to Mindfall, where the questions twist and turn. Dive deep with us, we'll watch ideas burn. Down the rabbit hole we go, chasing thoughts you've yet to know.